on page 1. In the all mothers, sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all knowingness, may they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. All sentient beings, limitless as the sky, take refuge in the glorious kind Lama Vajradhara, the embodiment of the body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, source of the 84,000 categories of the teaching, and Lord of the Sanghas. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Phowa Practice Teachings, until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sanje Judan Sogi Jodam Pa Sanje Paru Dame Japsuje Nage Jansoy Gide Sonam Jem Dola Benje Sanje May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. And refuge of all sentient beings without exception, divine subjugator of terrifying Maras, together with their hosts of demons, the one who understands all realities without exception exactly as they are, transcendent conqueror, together with your disciples, please come here to this place. The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the four continents, and the sun and moon. As a Buddha field, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fields. Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. And on page 11, Namo, to the Lama of utterly pure appearance and existence, I offer the fundamental ground of appearance and existence. I supplicate you to thoroughly liberate the three realms. Please grant your blessings and overturn the depths of samsara. The sublime master, wish-fulfilling jewel, crown ornament, the inconceivable, inexpressible mind of the victorious ones, the one endowed with the five wisdoms of omniscience, gracious one, the embodiment of love, precious protector of beings, I supplicate you from within the essence of mind. Please grant your blessings from within the innate nature. Please bless me that I may realize the Dharmakaya that is beyond intellect, this primordially unborn, completely pure mind. Transcendent conqueror, the one thus gone, foe destroyer of afflictive emotions, completely perfected Buddha, endowed with logic and virtue. The one gone to bliss, knower of the world, captain, tamer of beings, the unexcelled teacher of gods and men, I respectfully prostrate, completely touching my head to the stainless feet of the unequaled Shakya king. At the time of your birth, the leader of two-legged beings, taking 7 steps on this great earth, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise even then, I prostrate. Possessing a body of complete purity, your sublime form is excellent. An ocean of primordial wisdom, you are like a golden mountain. The one whose renown is evident throughout the 3 worlds, protector of supreme attainment, to you I prostrate. To you who are endowed with the supreme marks, whose face is like a immaculate moon, to you, the one with a complexion like gold, I prostrate. A flawless one such as you, among the 3 levels of existence, is most exquisite. Unparalleled omniscient one, to you I prostrate. Supreme among humans, captain of those to be tamed, the one thus gone who severs the all-binding fetters, who with senses pacified is utterly pacified and skilled in peace. To that one, the one who dwelled at Shravasti, I prostrate. Refuge endowed with great compassion, totally omniscient one who indicates the way, ground basis for ocean of merit and qualities, I prostrate to the one thus gone. The pure cause free from attachments, the virtue that liberates from the lower realms, the altogether supreme ultimate truth, to the pacifying Dharma I prostrate. Having been liberated, they also reveal the path to liberation. Thoroughly respectful of the 3 higher trainings, they are a field of sublime qualities. To the Sangha, I also prostrate. And then back to page 9. Nama Namse Namda De Lama Nai Then on page 15, I prostrate to the youthful Manjushri, to those in the worlds of the 10 directions, however many there are, all the lions among humans who appear during the 3 times. To all of them without exception, I pay homage with respectful body, speech, and mind. The force of my aspiration prayer for excellent conduct brings all the victorious ones directly to mind. Bowing down with bodies as numerous as atoms in the realms, I prostrate to all the victorious ones. In a single atom, there are Buddhas as numerous as atoms, each residing in the midst of their sons and daughters. Like that, I imagine the whole Dharmadhatu completely filled with victorious ones. To those with oceans of inexhaustible praiseworthy qualities, with sounds containing oceans of tones of melodic speech, I express the qualities of all the victorious ones. I praise all the Sugatas, the finest flowers, the finest garlands, music, ointments, supreme parasols, supreme lamps, and the finest incense. I make offerings to the victorious ones, with the finest cloths, supreme scents, and fine powders equal to Mount Meru, all displayed in supreme and magnificent ways. I make offerings to those victorious ones. With vast and unsurpassable offerings, I venerate all the victorious ones. Through the power of faith and excellent conduct, I prostrate and offer to the victorious ones. With actions I have performed with body, speech, and also mind, overpowered by desire, aggression, and stupidity, I confess each and every one of them. I rejoice in everyone's merit, the victorious ones of the 10 directions, the bodhisattvas, the pratyeka buddhas, those in training, those beyond training, and all beings. I request the protectors, the lamps of the worlds of the 10 directions, who passing through the stages of awakening, attain Buddhahood beyond attachment, to turn the unsurpassable Dharma wheel. I supplicate with my palms joined together, those who intend to demonstrate nirvana, to remain for kalpas as numerous as the atoms of the realms, for the welfare and happiness of all beings. I dedicate whatever slight virtue is accumulated through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and supplicating to enlightenment. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma, of the 2 vehicles and their combination, according to the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. I don't know.
So it seems as though I'm just going to say, I think there are maybe a couple people who are not muted on the Zoom, so people might want to mute themselves. Does somebody have the capacity to mute people? Thank you. Okay.
나송미나 드네 딜링 카디스 치고바 고르다 지 누드로지 휴요레 티니다 이네야 트레야 고치 당가 좀 제나 강에 나와다 히와세야 들어와팅 트레 신도베 네카라 드네 칸디스고 레세야지 다 top knowledge, Phowa Practice.
And so yesterday we spoke a lot about illness and how to deal with illness. and death also entered into that. So today we're moving more, focusing on death when, the difficulty of that are presented at the time of death, how to deal with that, what are the temporary methods to be able to apply during the process or experience of death. And so the main method being the practice of Phowa.
틱몰 카레카르 지부를 힙타로지 휴요레스 힙타된다 틱몰로지 휴네트네 맞다 사다난다 본테니 도요 이나야 트레이야 갑도 거랑다 포와네마 고조캬미스 제티 호라트네 맞다 두노 총미나 다야 포와텔라 원에 포와야보 토버치와라 카레카르 보그레이스야지 테니 휴비스
Phowa tovna toyala toyagi chiru. Gande kogire.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, like we did yesterday, although there was more kind of elaboration in the teachings yesterday, we did end up going through the text, the sadhana. It was a very abbreviated or concise sadhana. And so today, instead of kind of slowly beginning with some basic instruction first, we'll begin by going through the sadhana in detail, step by step, and then we get to certain parts. He can elaborate, and then also if there's time following that, he can also talk about or discuss what is needed to really accomplish Phowa.
어디가 나지트냐 저랑서 지 트바로 요비나 등에 야 이게 너 티하다 되기래 서와 단단한 거네 이도 거기 치료도 치료센터 아디나 등 맞아 투수지
and then if you guys if questions come up in the process of listening, you can write them down, you can jot them down as a note and then to yourself, and then we will have some time to address questions probably in the afternoon session or the evening session.
다시 당한 좀 포와세야지 이거를 포세야들라 되는지 다야 뭐네 세나리 야면은 다 포사게 가지나 가서 다 직변에 단단 가서 포하지 않게 무기 류된지로와 무기 류된 되네 직변에다 된가 사발라 대화진지 신함을야 넘버 해보 포세야들라 포스비 포와세야 자되고 yes.
And so with the word Phowa, so Phowa, this word, which is actually often translated as the transference of consciousness. So the first part of that word po means to migrate, to transfer, to move, from one state to another. So like from below to above. And so in this case, the place or where it is that we're transferring or migrating to is the pure realm of Dewachan or Sukhavati. So this is a practice that involves, transferring the consciousness at the time of death to the pure realm of Sukha or Buddha field of Sukhavati.
가서 나로 주로 그나리야 포와요레 다 드링값 사발라 그래서 지금까지 이렇게 포반자서 마세야 돼 제야를 스팀다 제가 고 단다라고지 다 나오다고 그랬어.
So there's also Phowa in two contexts. So we have the the Phowa that is actually practiced as part of the 6 yogas of Naropa. And then we have Phowa, which is more commonly practiced, like in the sadhana that we have here, which is the sadhana or the practice of inserting the grass stalk. I think that's how I translated it. And so they're actually very similar. These two are quite similar.
Different careers, when another children the winner, tumble long to the jungle with long journey, that could pay. Round here like any such a no Yago. Tinuda Tanda de Power Jazo did that, which you met formally tumble, but some make it in between gentle again. Then go head say at that. Round Kigla, head do matter Maris.
And so maybe the difference is that this sadhana that we're practicing here is actually a little bit easier. It is more designed for kind of beginners, or maybe not total beginners, but those who maybe are not at, say, the level of practicing the 6 yogas, whereas in the context of the 6 yogas, then when, for instance, there's the part where we do the hicks, in which the sphere of consciousness is propelled upwards, and in the 6 yogas practice of Phowa, there are 21 hicks in one cycle, in one round. In this practice, there are 7 hicks in one round.
Powandelaya, Powan Potugres on the Penachashavina, Tene, Pashida, Ming and the water. Tene, Tiana Yeke, Jig, Mer, the pattern is Zashawa, the Vicky Nania, Jig, Sami Vicky Dipa, Tinizashawa, Latinea.
So Phowa is a practice that really can be accomplished by anyone. I'm sorry, I was looking. It's okay, I have a thing there. So Guru Rinpoche, for instance, said that really anyone can succeed in the transference of consciousness. So even somebody who is not very intelligent, or who doesn't, who isn't very, very smart or intelligent, likewise, somebody who has accumulated a great deal of negativity, even somebody who might have, say, engaged or be carrying the karma of the 5 acts of immediate consequence, that even in circumstances like this, that person could still succeed in the transference of consciousness.
That the Karsung Lana Jatanga, Tsungro, that Indian poet district. Yap, the Nebet Sami village, Jan Shalaya, Ponoya, Karina, could the passage of the Pazu Jamago, Karina, and some Kugua, Tende Mare, so Yinayang. Because such a massage with Kansaji, you be in a young tea to Tigarana, or Tebada, each you with the top key, the native. But now, can a Shinkamdo Chivina, there was Shinkamina, Tadu, there was in Shinkamdoina, the Pajana, you're the Chushuya, you're the what in it, which is Lil Laranoji. Tiganajin Gashi young, poverty. Carriolavina, Pipachimbo Sasha Jotozola, Lamsan, and a Hivine color poor Yavina, today, Joboyan, Horaji, Tenjor Muli, Yabodi Topra, Tende Pona, Aeris. Take Tenjor Muli Pone, Tene Tigalo, the Pajana, or that day was starting Yan de Pacana Yamagoa, Timiji Tonia, Doyamara, that one out the Telabis.
So how is it then? We might think, how is it possible that somebody who even has the karma of the five acts of immediate consequence would be able to succeed in, transferring the transference of consciousness. It is actually that somebody even having really, really heavy karmic obscurations or having engaged in really heavy negativities, that if in that moment of practicing Phowa at the time of death, if they have really genuine faith and devotion, if their mind is really kind of infused with like very pure motivation at that moment, then it is possible that they can, in fact, despite the karmic, the heavy karma that they carry, that they can end up transferring their consciousness to Dewa Chen. And then in Dewa Chen presents this opportunity for for the full purification of their obscurations. And then they can, it's easier, for instance, to be, receive the Dharma there, to progress on the path. And so it is what ends up happening is that because of the strength of the purity of their intention and the power of the practice at the time of death, they end up, very sort of quickly going through a very thorough process of accumulation, of purification and accumulation. And so then the Daujur Milu Toyatla Karelain.
That's Nima Jung.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And if they don't succeed in transferring their consciousness to Dewa Chen, then there's still the possibility that they will be reborn, taking a human birth, that they'll attain a human birth with the leisures and endowments.
Chetanda, Karsegore, Pera, Penadewajin, and Kamdawaji. So I think this, if he born in the Pure Land, so there is kind of less distractions or less obstacles. So like there is more support. Everyone support everyone practice. So the practice easy to practice.
It's easier to practice.
And whatever you wish, you want to receive the teachings, like very easy in Pure Land. Kind of Pure Land is similar. Still, you need to practice purifying, practice and receive the teachings. So, like for instance, we are here. Is really the maintenance we have distractions, obstacles for practice. And also we don't have like totally support, So which means, so we go outside, so almost it looks like no one's practice, So then just kind of we shy, we say practice, maybe I don't want to say, mentors, So we don't have, particularly in West. So I think there looks like much easier than here. So, what you are now, you that it, Marble take it, Gombe Sanji, Kunayu, Magom Sanji, Malayu, so with me, Jeta, Jacom Jabne, Nurikiene. Tindije Kela, Sanji Dubiada, Yores, Sanji Tugris, Yene Yang, who Gomshida, Jamagoe, Kaleshida, ya Magove Tony, Kitanga, Mixi, Kinali, Lucia, the power is.
And so the translator Marpa said, everyone has the method for attaining Buddhahood through meditation. But I have the method for attaining Buddhahood without meditation. And so it is, there are all of these methods that require a very extensive, practice and a process of really developing, deep levels of practice through meditation. But with Phowa, it's not, that there's no meditation at all, but with relatively less meditation, the results can be attained very quickly. So they're very, very special pith instructions.
Oh, I forget before. What in the Tigana you get to lay the passage Sangantella, Portugal, Seattle, Sunday, that was the Fasia, Miguel, Seade, or Dubura, present he could duty, Miguel Sabi, could drive was doing negative, could do one of your linear choice, she some town being a young, because sang to Saria to could drop a jail, show chain with this. Young children show chain with this. The same say me ala, give us such as an Zola, same say me ala, Lela with this.
Tessia Pocuma Dilla, send check me out. The Yaman Dilla. Deni le the dikbe Migewa the Diki Korlaya Boshirakum Sangunda.
Kita dipasya to Jarawa. Dipasya to Jari, the Vazahia we can do the name was. Yina young, however, some the Sapien Saudi, Gava do Viala, young penguins. Pinjoba Shochim Chegua.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, generally speaking, because like the greater the negative karma and the obscurations, then the harder it is to experience liberation. And as we know, there's always the fruition, the cause. When there is a particular cause, then in all cases, the cause yields the respective or it's the appropriate fruition. So when negativity or non-virtue is accumulated, then there's the fruition of that, the result of that has to be experienced. But sometimes actually the accumulation of negativity, having engaged in negativity, can become the cause that actually speeds up the process of awakening, because it becomes the cause to really feel a deep sense of remorse, to have remorse and to be determined, to purify negativities and to devote oneself to the path, to quickly progress along the path. So in that way, sometimes it can end up actually speeding up the process. Because then also the mind becomes really with that, the impetus of that remorse, the mind can really be single pointed in one's focus.
That in the Penson Yashoroti, Melari Parawa, Melari Pandawina, what I think it knows that the Melari Pacation Lap women to Tambo. Carisena, Co, Tajik, Pasavi Kabla,
Who would you like?
Sorry. This was not on purpose. I touched it accidentally with my little pin. Sorry. Okay.
Could because Pasavi Kabla, ignorance. Yina Yelita Koji. because that's a very legitimate Yamana Lama Chu to Yamana that to be Janji give it with the peak near give it ping on the Hakona. Then it be telegic that is.
So in any case, sometimes when when there is the accumulation of negativity, it is in a state of ignorance, not really understanding the weight of what it is that one is doing. And so then when one comes into contact with the Dharma or receives teachings from a teacher, and then one sort of awakens to the errors that have been created in the past, or one really feels, the fault of non-virtue and negativity and the benefit of virtue. So then later there comes that sense of remorse and determination to purify or correct that wrongdoing. So like the example of Milarepa is a very good example of this.
So the Kisi Malaria Koran normal people departing some maybe na teaching Malaria Sanjig Mara for Koran Kitaki normally
Young Charkunta.
But not so this if you the Malaria didn't create the negativities early life, then maybe later life maybe not practice, So sometimes interesting, I think there one story is I think also we have this money dedication, right? So some people they said no virtues and no negatives. So that is in samsara still long time. So because just they think it's just normal, just no, because not yet, they didn't create not much negatives, then just maybe no remorse, right? Remorse.
Yes.
Or that thing you Tindike ko karsana that because saw could be changing when a pond when you're chivina, you go take some zig near top net. That and that going to pour the format of Nina, Chicama, Chicase, Niasmo Boyak, Yore, or something. Tindike ko focus here, pingus is.
So in this way, sometimes when there's a really heavy accumulation of negativity, then there's really that itself can become the impetus, the inspiration to engage single-pointedly or really to devote oneself entirely to the practice. Say, for instance, in the practice of Phowa, to then have really single-pointed concentration and the aspiration for liberation. Understanding that actually, the alternative is that one might end up being born in the three lower realms. There's the danger of being born in the three lower realms. And so then that fear actually becomes the impetus to really intently focus.
Also, this my experience, I said during the cultural revelation, some people really they create negatives, they destroy the monasteries, or beating the lamas and so on. And later on, so that happened. So 90 started I think 1959, but in the 1960s, and then so 1980s. Slowly, able to done a practice. So those people is unbelievable is practice, First we said, oh, those people is like terrible people, how they take destroy the monastery, destroy the, or beating the Lama. That's but they know actually what they did, and then come back religious free. So those people are working for day and night in the monastery and like practice sincerely, So sometimes negatives, bad. The result is to, suffering. But sometimes negativities, the early life, but they sometimes really bring the later life in a more practice, that they really focus, okay? So they know, okay, I need to purification this life, otherwise, they can lower them. So sometimes always, we think, oh, this is create negative, always bad, but not that case. So sometimes helpful and also, yeah, I say just really. So Dharma practice is everything depending how sincerely, how 100% focus, depending, You less focus, less result, Less sincerely, the less result. So you really 100% focus, then the experience you get 100%. So that is, I think, Phowa. So also, there was a Jatanga the Phowa the Tayang, you Phowa tap metapsia the Zodaku, Lela Rally Yoris. Later, Jatanga the Phowa Latmin, Regmando Mamboyori, Jatanga, Getano Shubina, Chuku Phowa Sayano, or Lonku Phowa Sayano, or Turku Phowa Sayano, or Taji, Tindiki, Yavano, Shaviores.
So also there are many different types of Phowa practice, and whether or not Phowa works also has a lot to do with karma. So it depends on the karma. And there are the different categories or types of Phowa. So for instance, there's the Dharmakaya Phowa, there's the Sambhogakaya Phowa, and there is the Nirmanakaya Phowa.
Benangata, Dharmakaya Phowa, Siano, Kari Lavina, Bena Kanza, the Charger Chimbu, Nyamlan a bit, new thing, Tindiji, Charger Chimbu, Mola, near to me, you telegic mixing of the head, ja, visual, kind of booey or malis. When a Kazan of the Hugo Nigeria, see a Tigana, Chigala, which is no big number of the song, party Chandler. Tindiji Chami King no Coralati, Jimmy Payap, where I am at Tegaran, Mashimone, Timrim de Potawa Tegaran, which is money, that had a change of more scenery, Cotean, or Polo, the Tatayo, the Tlin Jimmy, a ya visual cheap where your money is.
So an example of the Dharmakaya Phowa would be, well, first of all, what is needed for the Dharmakaya Phowa is somebody who has the capacity to abide within the realization of Mahamudra. So a practitioner of Mahamudra who can remain within the realization or recognition of Mahamudra. And in that case, then that is all that is needed at the time of death. There's no other visualization. One doesn't have to recite the hicks. There's nothing else that is needed except for just releasing into the recognition of the natural state. So an example of this was when we did the medicine Buddha practice and we recited the syllable ah, and that syllable ah then became the condition to just disperse, calls all the clouds of discursive thinking, the conceptual thoughts, to clear out, to sort of disperse those clouds of obscuration, so that then one can remain within the recognition of the natural state or the true nature of awareness. And in that case, if one, practices this Dharmakaya Phowa, that's all that happens. One just rests the mind in the natural state without needing to recite the 8 syllables or anything like that, or recite a sadhana. It's also like the same thing that happens in the dissolution stage when practicing the generation stage, and then we get to the dissolution, and then with the dissolution, then one rests within the recognition of unelaborated awareness. So that is the same really as the Dharmakaya Phowa.
Dharmakaya Phowa lam는 제결이 양면은 말씀은
Oh, okay. So you can call it Dharmakaya Phowa. You can also call it the Phowa of the completion stage.
드네 양다 단다 롱조족의 포와들이 단기 가장 희원한 일이다. 지금 라고 양만 오면서 보고 싶다. 서와도 소보고 싶다. 다 동반이도 줘. 다 동반이도 줘서는 샘직들랑 이들랑 동배가래 서는 다 이담지 제거요. 다 드리급에 깨는나 장초되면 드리기 요비나 드네 지 믹스해서 가지고 다 단다 디 포원로나 둘지 포모공 드네 드리제라 고디 자도 조공 드네 디간 해야 드리 칸 거요 말이스 드네 고지 제렘 타가라네 고지렘 공부 타가라네 고토로 말이스.
And then there's also then this this Phowa of the Sambhogakaya Phowa, which kind of, if you think about it in terms of the generation stage and the sadhana, so first there's the recitation of the Swabhava mantra, Om Swabhava Shuddha Sarva Dharma, etc. And then with that recitation, everything is transformed into its original essence, which is emptiness, or one abides within that recognition of innate awareness or the true nature of mind. Then from within that recognition of the true nature of mind, there arises the enlightened form of the deity, or one arises as the enlightened form of the deity, as Vajrayogini in this case. And so then in that case, by actually just maintaining the generation stage at the time of death, visualizing oneself in the form of Vajrayogini or the Yidam deity, then also there's not any need to recite the hicks and transfer one's consciousness, but instead the Phowa is achieved through the generation stage.
다 담아대 가지고 다 둘그 포와 시네리 양면은 다 포 장야 그거네. 포와데 땅을 선들래 있더니 포와 그런 포위 사단나는 체내 로고요로와 대인들다 대양네 대행가 조카 사베케 포와들라 포원자조마 라고 단기 공부하는 자조마 다 뒤에 그 루준도 중단으로 지금 테스팅 마시기스.
So then there's the Nirmanakaya Phowa, which is what we're doing here with this sadhana of inserting the stalk of the wild grass. So we do the Nirmanakaya Phowa just as it indicates in in the text here, following the sadhana. And so to begin with, Drupala said he'll explain a little bit about the background or the history.
다 뒤에 있더니 다 기타 이 포라 방문도 있나 지금 아주 남배게 엠바시오 말와 드네 다 당보디 지금 아주 아주 선생 방법 오케이 드네 남바디라 지금 동아지 그다 동아지 외게 그런 열보인 비좀 생할 때는 지금 남바 요보지 포를 다 토야로 담아요. language so also also what the chi is Tini
language separate the songs. Songs in Gampo. Okay, yeah.
tini ta ki ke kumarap sumpan ro jila tini ta jawo yang cha tini song de chen se jawo ji chung ta jitang song san gambo ne song de ji ta den za chen bu tini den den xue ya gomba ja ya tini mongbo ji chi yo is.
So to begin with, in Tibet, long ago in Tibet, there was no, for many years there was no Buddha Dharma, and then there arrived the Buddha Dharma arrived first with the efforts of King Songtsen Gampo, and he becoming really interested in Buddhism, decided that he was going to take every effort to cause Buddhism to spread throughout Tibet very quickly. And so it was with him, for instance, that even the written language of Tibetan was created with the sole intention to actually translate all of the Dharma into the Tibetan language so that the Tibetans would be able to read it. And then with the third
generation
or 3 generations after that, you mean? Yeah. 3 generations after that, there came the second great Dharma king, who was Trisong Detsen, and he also had, it was due to him and his great efforts that also there was this second great wave of Buddhism in Tibet. And much of his Dharma activities was actually building like monasteries and representations of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind in Tibet, establishing Buddhism also in many ways, but also in this way.
어때 뒤에 변하다 송생 감보 강로 위비나 된다 아직 추니 된된 휴네 되네 디기 추 휴세 하다 너무 제세요 여러분들 추강세 행요를 뒤에다 자성대 전개 게다 고란게 믹스게 되네 이제 다 친구들이 힘이야게 이제 차리는 거지 이거です.
So it was his objective to really have like a great assembly hall and a great, to build these great monasteries or temples in which people could gather and receive the Dharma teachings. So he had a plan to build a really magnificent temple. Songtsen Gampo La Yang La Yinbei. Oh, okay. So also King Songtsen Gampo also built the Chukang temple. Also built temples, great temples and representations of supports in this way.
지인의 양 고지다 공부 자야라 양 콜레로 예삼마와 카르세나지 코나지아보리 왕차요리 주요리 지인의 양 고지다 제몽보지 이거사리 트리임비케 다 제엔도 노비타블레트니 산노 타운드 지다 모마지와 모메케 지 레다 몰람로 유데와디 지 당고rum보체다 님캠보 현다라히다 티가나 이게 저건 대체 포랑 아테네 야롱 바마티저스야 다도 지 달루기로 오시나 코랑 스모마탄 보다나지
영철
행이라 뭐라고
so the Songtsen Gampo la doala okay yomare so dangpo tenda le lapo yapo wangcha kim mangpo tene kare la di yapo di shingtu ma Songtsen Gampo
레로 요마리 송살 공부 말고 하트던지
so Songtsen Gampo la chi
no
yene yang ngoma Songtsen Gampo chi nga la yomare la yorwa
아니 됐다
dadi tsar Okay. So that dinigare de go ne yam charla kain sananga yapo go thomson.
인다 제탄 공부 자야 되고 여러 일이 여러 달라 코랑 기타 제탄 고 왕제 요리티 이나양 고다 직jem 보여로와 틀리 때네 고 자야 기타 차리노야 보된 거 보여서와 이는다 차리게 되 약속의 가르침을 라나 근데 코랑 기타 하코네 제가 오만라 지금 뭐는 잡혀고 부 희게 보다나 좋다는 잡이어와 보다 틀리지 그냥도 운동을 yapıyor 같은 하코네 틀리 캠보다 히다 되는 슈 되는 그런 것이 되는 슈 야마다 고티 되는 순간 동안에 이알롱 바메티어스 야들와 이알롱 바메티어스 코람네 이알롱 센터 사체와
Yarlong bamo
바메티어
tije tini kong suri
안테네 좀 되잖아 아까 안 미해도와 테스트소
dini kongta yarlong bamo tije da tamko yapo koma songde.
메지로다 메지
So kong yang ke tambare.
이 땅에 야만도가 코라마
Oh, okay, that's all. Okay, so then, so Trisong Detsen was the one who had this plan to build this really extraordinary temple, but it is not an easy feat to accomplish such a great thing, even though he was the king and he had all of this power. There was still all of these conditions, that it was difficult for all of the conditions to come together. But then they did. And it was also through understanding that in the past, there was this very powerful aspiration prayer that was made in former lives with the building of the Bodhanath Stupa, which is in modern day Nepal, where Trisong Detsen and Kimbo Shantarakshita and Guru Rinpoche were there together at Bodhanath, and they made this really in former lives, and they made these powerful aspiration prayers. And so then Trisong Detsen, understanding this, sent for Kimbo Shantarakshita and Guru Rinpoche, who were in India at the time. He sent Yarlung Bami Trijir to invite them and bring them back to Tibet.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. That thing that can that Kanda young, that don't be more don't mabuche. That finally, because that some years here, that's and a poke and not get that gomba chimbo scenery, Sa chimboti, and the sons and gumbo on the Jabshajo K, Chuhanda, Ramochi, say.
Songs and gumbo, not Tala, feel
the Za chimbo is the combat.
So
the
young Gomba, you mean?
Chukang and Ramochi.
Chukang.
So these are the Sons and Gumbo, first king Dharma king. So he built the two temples, so very special temple. So for the Chu statue.
For the Jowo statue.
So this Chu means Buddha statue, okay? Easier to understand. So maybe this look up history. So I'm not sure exactly, but maybe they said they built the 3 statues. Some people said they built during Buddha time, his lifetime. Or some people said just Buddha passed, they built. So anyway, there are 3 statues in the Bodh Gaya, India. Probably many people saw the Bodh Gaya temple. So that time is, so of course, in Nepali, I think looks like the different country that time. but of course the Buddhism, and also in China is the Buddhism country. So I'm not sure. So the one statue going to Nepal. So I don't know that there's no history. But there's Nepal king. Whatever he owned, so one statue. Indian king give to I don't know. But another statue actually then this Chinese king and the Indian king is become very friendly, but they never meet each other. So, but the Chinese king, like a lot of special gift to Indian king, they send many things. I don't know, special silk or special, I don't know this, gemstones or so. But then the Indian thinking, I want to give really special for him. So just thinking. So then he thought, okay. So now I found it good, So he put the Buddha statue, Chinese king. So then the Songtsen Gampo, so the first Dharma came in the Tibet. Mm-hmm. And the Songtsen Gampo, so the Songtsen Gampo and probably King Ashoka, right? Ashoka, mm-hmm. Indian king. That's very, very similar. So like extremely powerful king, mm-hmm. and just basically war, fight. The Songtsen Gampo himself. Mm-hmm. So he just controlled almost like all Asia.
Mm-hmm. At that time, the Tibetan kingdom was really huge.
Very big. But later on, sort of he changed the mind, That's not working, just always killing each other. Sometimes other country win, sometimes other country win, just there's no ending. Mm-hmm. So there's Songtsen Gampo thinking, okay, maybe just become friends. So, but in order to the two countries become friends, there's no solution, because the Songtsen Gampo killed whatever like thousands, Chinese soldiers. Then say, later on I can make friends, but I don't think Chinese didn't know. And then he took all the India and Nepal, and then later on he took all the land Songtsen Gampo took, and then so we can just become friends, basically. No way. But then Songtsen Gampo kind of idea. Okay. So then sort of like a forceful, but he wanted to marry daughter from one Chinese king and daughter from the Nepal king. So kind of this a story, but really friendly, sort of like giving the daughter of marriage, but he has power. So anyway, so later on become friends, So they bought both daughters from Chinese king and Nepal king, his daughter, what the princess.
The two princesses, right. Yeah.
So that time is also, I don't know Nepali story either, but the Chinese, the story is the Chinese princess, the father, Chinese king, he said, okay, so I don't know Tibet, there's not much resources, high altitude. So that time is the Chinese king is extremely rich, so I think there are all sources, so whatever you want, you take with you, whatever gold, silver, or whatever silk, or so Then daughter said, I don't want anything. Because you give to me this Tibet good or bad, already you give me, So if you really, the Tibet is not that good, you shouldn't give me to Tibet king. But you already give, Then this Tibet they're good, that's okay. And Tibet bad, that's okay. I don't need anything. So then the father said, oh, okay. And then later on, he said, but I need one object of refuge. So then, so probably there's hundreds, thousands, Buddha, Dharma, statues, and so on. But he said, I want that statue from India, So the king no choice. So that story, but I'm not sure exactly. So maybe King Songtsen, he's really power. He wanted daughter. He wanted the Buddha. But that's I'm not sure. But this story. But anyway, he bring 2 daughters and 2 Buddha statues in Tibet. So there's Songtsen Gampo. So first, I think they married this from a princess from Nepal. So he is extremely knowledge too. So he kind of engineered. He built the Chokan temple. So like many people. So first they did the Chokan temple. They built the Nepali, princess. He's engineer.
Designed it.
Designed. He built. And then there's the Ramochi Chu live there. And then later on, King Songtsen Gampo bring the Chinese daughter and the Buddha, and then they built the Ramochi, this Ramochi temple. But so this also both fathers said, okay, I give you this statue, but please, they build the temple. Of course, you guys build the temple, but please, the Buddha facing to us and the door facing to us. So they both said that story too, So they did. But later on, again, until today, this fight, China and Tibet again, fight. So they changed it, Buddha.
The truce didn't work last for very long.
So the Buddha now is Buddha, this change it. So this, so now true, it should be Ramochi Chu, right? So anyway, the Buddha changed. But still, the true statue from China, they didn't destroy. I think they took ornaments, crown ornaments, but some reason, I don't know, that is a Mao he took, destroy all, even the Chinese temples destroy everything, but some reason he didn't destroy the Chu temple, but Chu statue. And the Chu temple too, not completely destroyed. But the Ramochi Chu from Nepal, they destroy, just they cut, half. And that time is the spacious, the statue, like they have gold, whatever, this special metal. So they took in China, Beijing. So what their metal using, something, melted, I know. But later on, the Panchen Lama, he know where is that. So, but they found it both, upper side and lower side. They put together. Now still the 2 statues there. So that is Songtsen Gampo story. And then the Chisong that so they want to okay, this is
what's connected to Phowa.
right.
It's the story with Chisong Detsen.
So Chisong that so he want to build. So the day he built, so this we call Sami temple, Sami monastery.
So when he was talking about before the aspirations that were made and the obstacles to building this great temple, then when Kimbo Shantarakshita and Guru Rinpoche arrived in Tibet, they were able to build Samye, which was this big temple. What's that? Yes.
What in that he got that finally the gomba job. Tegana yita he got la Gurumbuchi kepe gomba job yours. Gomba job netene chikang Gurumbuchi kachu Tilipeta Mambosong Yorwa kachu the song one yita you can sort your translator so how much to be serva.
Or scribe.
Right, so Tini Chi Kanda Tika Chi or is that Karsago this Sama less no Karsaguchi Combate Pop and Gurumbuchi at some show. David Tutu Jiglas.
And so when Guru Rinpoche arrived in Tibet, so they built the Samye temple, and also then Guru Rinpoche gave many teachings. He taught the Dharma and had many close disciples, and the Dakini Shitsogya, who was the scribe, she wrote everything down, and many of his teachings were also hidden as treasures or termas, and also the Nitsamla de Bekala.
That is for one of this Kasna constantly down the Nochin Gurumbuchi on some day. Takoji is Loro you become last.
And then once all of this activity, this Dharma activity had been completed, and the time, things were a little bit more relaxed, and so then Guru Rinpoche went into retreat. He was spending most of his time in retreat, and during that time.
So during that time, so this came. Chisong Detsen, so he has just kind of like whatever he living place, like kingdom. So that time kind of like many floors. So maybe bottom there is all horses or storage and this. So so maybe upper he stay in the parents. So. But he did like moving things, maybe his servants or whatever, the moving things, nighttime. So they're using the torch, right?
Torches,
the fire, real fire. Anyways, he got fire completely his house. So then this burned like animals and parents, including, I think, like what is the something like 11 people, I don't know, something like, including parents, they died.
So many people died.
Many people died. So then he extremely upset, so like really, really sort of what he do. So then he cry, normally the fortunate people, they take care of the parents, But again, he said, I am like unfortunate person, I killed the parents. So this is extremely upset. So then we want to see to the Guru Rinpoche. So the situation, then Guru Rinpoche said, okay, don't worry. So I will, aspiration or supplication to Amitabha. So then, sort of Demasamba would directly see Amitabha, and then it comes by these portals.
So it came from that direct vision, right? Yeah.
What that in each year gone tine, what that thing that on the mason, what that you can for just not for Puyala, 다 그런 게 자침부지 요소로 왔다 세르침부로 유침부로 틀리요소로 와 되네 세니미닝보통 문다위 닝보세야 다 손자병보 그런 게 지금 퇴근하고
Yeah, Trisong Dixon. Yeah, okay. The Nime.
다 그런 게 세
Mm-hmm.
니미닝보
Mm-hmm.
다위 닝보 센터도 어떻게 봐 인탐문 산무로 테니테니 다 그런 푸요와 푸네 큐어스 다 뭐니 tangible
The muteksepo marebe or sure tenda the pu me
죄송한데 좀 푸요로
Trisong Dixon Guru Bishila Puyure.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then he wrote this down, and it was given to him then to practice, and it also then at that time there was gold Trisong Detsen offered to Guru Rinpoche, really precious gold and silver. So gold that was like the essence of the sun, and silver that was like the essence of the moon.
어다 딘디 지네다 추성대 생께 고론보지다 딘디 지네다 초랑델은 냠네 치스 라비오데스.
And so then Guru Rinpoche also then instructed Trisong Detsen to practice, to do this practice.
어다 딘디는 추성대 전데네 기타 냠네 치용비 까블라 딘디 고랑베 카르세고리 추성대 전나 딘디다 추성대 전나 말단 고랑보지 냠네 치네 이제 파마도로야 대화진 행업 지원으로 처음에 출발하고 되는지
And so then engaging in the practice, he really felt then that his parents had been transported to the pure realm of Dewachan.
근데 지지되는 이현소잘 lang상파다 단단들라 아마도 배주 이거 말이다 마음바라 배주 자친 모임들이 손들이
and then it was also then concealed for, as a treasure to be practiced in later times. That now wasn't the time to engage in the practice, but that a time would come in the future, where it would be particularly beneficial and powerful for the beings of that time to do this practice.
So they hidden at I think the Gamboba, right? So everybody knows the Gamboba. And there's Gamboba Monastery. So the Gamboba is a really interesting place, so the top of the mountain, just rocky mountain. And the top of the rocky mountain, there is the Mandala Black Lake. So then that can be interesting, so the silk is the waterproof, right?
Silk is waterproof?
Yeah. So the layers, 7 layers, and they put in the lake. So that in the that is the whole young and over there, Gala, Lujar Tunga and Tini, Harvest, Lujar Tunga and
So Loja.
So these are due to what is the guardians. They put in this Naga king in the Zunga region. So that's really interesting. I want to there too. So some this the Tibetan areas is really in the lower, the top of the Rocky Mountain. So they're like really top their special lakes, Tinida Tijela, Tinida Mulu, 가르스나지 뭐 숨자당 나 주스는 오지 라테네 사제와 대통 메인라 테네 년다 상제 세야지 테네 제발한 요레스.
So then 350 years later, it was revealed by the Turton Nida Sanje.
다 코란티 답라테네 다 설반로데 제탄 코란다 심천 소비여서 로당 라당 소비여서 소비 답라테네 베지 가서 설바데 베 닝게 효천부 효제리여서 와 디니젠 고베 센데랑 당연 그 심천 마시비 탑 면도 당가 셰차네 탑히지 라야 용선데 코란다 직 소바치 심페랑 디니랑 디니젤 때문에 고 설반하고 질량한테는 다다다 고 벨레한테는 탱거리스.
And so he discovered this when he was a shepherd. So he was taking care of, sheep and goats, and he would get really overwhelmed with compassion, especially when they died, when the animals died. And so he really was just sort of burning with this desire to be able to help these sentient beings somehow. So then when he remembered, he like in one of these moments of great compassion, he remembered where the terma had been hidden, and he was able to then extract the terma and then discovered the practice again.
Wada tine sonde da jadang da ko tidu peche me jigju no chi pima kaji chi yu sarwa ya tongin da sangji ne ko me jiglu ma ma te che ina da ti je le tene be da ko Phowa de tene ma chame ke nyam da chi ya wa cha yes.
And for a long time, it was kept hidden. So it was mainly just Turtanida Sanjay who practiced it. But then over time, it gradually became distributed to others, and then became like a practice that many beings were benefited by.
다 제단테 다 단다 드니 다 제단고 지 공동으로 오지 닝메 기초로 우리 이나양다 드니 지 그런 바신다 제단 닝마당 가주세요 본데리로 이 탐망마데 다 지공케 사촌도 오지 다 지공 파워세야 지 자친구로 지금 그래서
And so then it really primarily is a Nyingma practice originally, but then actually, as we know, the Nyingma and Kagyu are very connected, and so there also are different versions of Phowa that developed in different lineages, and this particular Phowa practice is specific to our Drikung Kagyu lineage.
I said the I said before
Yes, yes, I thought so.
So it was
minister, yes, yeah, Minister Nima. So the story about the fire in the house and the parents dying, it wasn't Trisong Detsen, but his minister Nima that this happened to. Yeah. And so Turtan Nida Sanjay is a reincarnation of this minister Nima, the shepherd, right, who was the Turtan.
Tiene da jetan Phowa kilo ju tega na yitene da ji nga so Phowa sidu tiene da namju do yi na ji da ji du ga ju ke da chung ma du ga ju ke sa chung do cha ti na ne tiene ji da ji chwan ji kan sung gong ne sung ge ji jetan ji yi chu se ya ji da tiene kunju se ya tiene yo sa re ta khar se na ye ka la ka chu na unga la ma che ne ya sam le de ya no ji da tiene ti je la tiene ji lo shire ki je la yang special ka chu re chu ya da
lo ka se
lo shira wa tiene da lo shi ti da 로 중니 나한테는 스페셜가 주를 주야. 뒤갈 때는 포와 나오는 사람와.
Lo chunire. And so kung ta digum zapchula kibajik din sungan lat kare
뒤 두줄라더니 제가 이 다제 가초낭탕로 이렇게라 가초디스나 뭔가 공작을
so there was
로
a tradition that developed in the Drikung lineage that really was established during the time of Lord Jigten Sumgan in connection with what's referred to as his Zapchu teachings, and this was then during the summer there would be a big teaching event, and then during the winter when it was cold, the focus would be primarily everyone would be in retreat, and so then there arose this tradition in particular to have every 4 years during the summer like a big teaching event, and then in addition to that, there was also then the tradition to have every 12 years a special event. And then the special event that occurs every 12 years became this great practice or a big practice of the great Drikung Phowa.
뭔가 되게 로 중니 나다 조 좋아하는 뭐지 두지 체모세야 되네 단다 다 장접 선배 고 야친 뭐지로 대당 that main teaching day 포와니 보이사레스
투제 참
투지 체모타 투지 체모 여러 장접 선배가 많아요. 대당 포와.
So Cuba Jigten Suman of you or Cuba Chutang.
에메텔라입니다. 로 중니 나나 가추나고를 라인바 스페셜 가추 카르나고를 슬라비나
And so the main two events that happen at this teaching that occurs every 12 years is that the vows, the great bodhisattva vows of the Drikung of the Tuje Chemo are given, and then also there is this practice of Phowa.
That is that Karsagore Lurjuno Tendes Tintati Tozigela Tinamata Yamne also Kandichipo Shugin.
So that's kind of the background or the history. And then later he will discuss more the stages, the actual details of the practice.
So do we have some questions or comments?
John, I have a question. I'll give you a that one first. Okay. So his question is, at what point do we do the actual Phowa? What are the outer, inner, and secret signs that we should begin the actual Phowa? I guess like when you're about to die, when you do the Phowa like.
Okay, tell me again.
So kung penangatso de tak pena dutu Phowa jaya gi dutu re do tak kare yore pena shiwe kada. Like what are the signs during the time of death that indicate that you need to start practicing Phowa?
It says what are the outer, inner, and secret signs that we should begin the actual Phowa?
Chi ta, nangi ta, sangwe ta, kare.
That Jatan Terwa, Mazola Tayore, Jatan, that Phowa Jaya Tela, Ram Phowa Jaya Jela, Sham Phowa Jaya in what is.
So there are two. There's a difference, there's the one who is dying who is practicing Phowa, and then there are those who are practicing, for someone who is dying.
Tinita, Chignaso Kanza Jigla, Lama Davijeke, Tinipa Phowa Jaya Tututi, Karsana, Jatanga Lada, Chi Kitime, Temrem Jigore, Chi Kiteventa, Sachu me long day. Number here, but 10 la bit Tigarala, quote much poaching to your start breed or Tiga Latini, Phowa is.
The wrong Phowa Jakin or Shin.
Phowa.
So when like somebody is doing Phowa for someone else, like a lama is doing Phowa for somebody who is dying, and then there are these kind of outer signs of the course level stages of dissolution, particularly the dissolution of the elements. So earth, the earth element dissolving into water, water dissolving into fire, fire dissolving into wind, and then wind dissolving into consciousness. So the sign that accompanies wind dissolving into consciousness is actually the ceasing of the breath. So the breath comes to a halt and one no longer is breathing. And then that is the time when the lama who is doing Phowa for someone else should practice Phowa at that moment, for that can eject the person's consciousness at that moment.
Depending is still to in when a charge charge chiboto bangun Jordavina or Rawando Giores. Kadu Tongo, Kadu Temgo, Matonji mini to the region Lachoran, Yomaris.
So
Benatangi Dharmakaya Pawanda, Dharmakaya Poina, Chuku Poina, Rawando, Sinchi mini Poda, the Tonkan Koran, individual Koran.
So it's less specific when it comes to one's own practice. And it also depends, like what type of Phowa one is doing. So for instance, the Dharmakaya Phowa, in particular, which is dependent upon the practitioner's realization of Mahamudra, then one really actually has kind of control over the, when the moment of death occurs. So then it's something that kind of becomes evident to the practitioner, like, oh, now is the time. But there isn't actually a specific moment, based on the signs when that needs to occur.
Also, no need to rely on the dissolutions. So they are basically, so ordinarily, okay, this naturally dissolved, so 5 elements. So normal people, but the higher practitioner, they can control of the dissolution. So, like for instance, ordinarily, okay, we call the saturated law.
So like the earth,
okay, the TT.
Earth dissolves into water.
Oh.
That's strange. What happened? Okay.
And a saturated temperature was on. Kablatini, Kosugo, Kunjo, Korameva Chano Blua. That should mail a temi, Kanta Yankoda, functioning the wing body, Tigana, you cannot speak channel this. When ordinary in the winner, ordinary persona, go get a lot of will Marista, Machinola. Yina Yankoda, you practitioner to Suina, then park control which in dissolution, Tongan Galatini, get a lot of will go Tadu Amjoko, you Katala in Babena, Natuda, Chancho Blanket, Tawaji Ton Yorwa, or that channels with the Yameda, the Malo, some of Kogiore, Pongiora, or that is on. Tanga Henga he, Lujube Mogiore, Chita Train Be, Saya Bondo, Nakia Bondo, Tana, Dogi Siano Trium.
So ordinarily, for ordinary people, there are these core stages of dissolution accompanied by specific signs. So for instance, when earth dissolves into water, usually the sign that accompanies this is that the body becomes very heavy and it becomes difficult to move. And then
basically cannot move.
Then there's the time when water dissolves into fire. And then when this happens, there's a sort of a diminishment of functioning, and one cannot speak. Like an ordinary person sort of loses the ability to speak at this point. But for practitioners, there is still a high level of control throughout these stages. So that doesn't happen for them. They even, through these stages of dissolution, they can still speak, they can still hear, they can still appropriately like understand and cognize. So for instance, like the example of the Lama from Zhangjiubling who recently passed away, as he mentioned yesterday, that it was like in, just following this supplication, this Yamataka supplication, that then he passed away, he died. And then there's also many stories of high-level practitioners who might say something like, oh, today the weather is really nice. It's a good day to die. And then they actually intentionally transfer their consciousness at that time. And so there are many stories of this where, like this, where practitioners at high-level practitioners have tremendous control throughout the process of death.
So one week Kempo Wanto in Tibet. So he's old, so then he's just somebody, or I don't know, the one they're talking about, he hearing, well, today is 25th day, So he hearing, so he said, oh, today is 25th day. So somebody said, yeah. All right, so, oh, okay, yeah, that's the Dakini day. And so this is really nice weather, So then I think he said maybe, I want to something yogurt or something. Then he doing a couple of yogurt. That's it. So that thing that is kind of to choose your marriage. Yina yanta tanda di ta nga so jik turku Phowa se ya lagunari ta khanda Phowa tanga nyamne chiya de la ta jik khanda so yang tindi ki control chi ma tho bi na yang jik tanda Phowa ngo sing so Phowa yang yo na tindi jik ta rang chorwa ji yorwa chorwa tanga hindu du sambe ke jik chorwa ji le be ka na tene jik Phowa ro ji tembi na Phowa tem ro gris tanda nga so ta ngazo 단단한 이거 대마로 사다나로 이 연구요 말와 이나양 Phowa 템바 잠지 Phowa 세야지 맹 템바 잠지 그 Phowa 템로 그래서 방법 Phowa 되냐면 지요나 아대지 그거다 좀 맛있는 거 오지와 시간을 오지.
So in this way, actually, there isn't any particular time or sign that is where it becomes like apparent to the practitioner that now is where it's like always the same for the practitioner to say now is the time to transfer my consciousness, but rather it's something that kind of becomes apparent to the practitioner in the moment. It's not always the same. For the for the person who maybe isn't at that high level of really being able to control the moment of death, who's doing this Nirmanakaya Phowa practice, then there's still sort of what happens is the moment that the signs of death start to manifest, one is already turning one's mind to the practice, remembering the practice of Phowa, and it can sort of be started internally at whatever time during that practice process, when in the midst of that sort of degradation or deterioration of the body, when one is experiencing illness near the time of death. But it isn't like one has to read through the sadhana and remember this sort of specific words and everything. It's more like the mind turns to Phowa, and actually often it can be merely remembering to do Phowa that really
That's
becomes that becomes enough. That becomes sort of the impulse for the consciousness then to be directed or propelled upward and transferred from the crown.
So for lesser practitioners, if you're dying, like the liberation through hearing and touch, because you're at that point where, you know, touch the top, and you last thing that you really have the capacity probably to do is to hear. So if the Lama is sitting, or other practitioners are sitting there saying Phowa for you or whatever, that's your other potential. Yes.
Mm.
And that's about what liberation through hearing and touch is. Sort of.
Are you I didn't catch, are you saying if somebody touches your
Well,
head?
no, I know that when
or-
somebody's, what I understand is when somebody's actively dying, you touch up here, you focus up here, you turn things off, you
Mishimba.
take
Mhm.
personal items out of the room.
Mhm,
Better to touch up here than the feet.
mhm.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
The
So
person
these.
isn't conscious anymore. really
Right.
conscious anymore.
Yeah. So these. You're right. So this, yes, not touch, and also we. So we see that the person maybe they cannot look like cannot see, and cannot hearing, but they do. They can mind. So just
speak anymore.
cannot speaking, but they know. So the less disturbing, you know, whatever move body or like too much talking or so. Yeah, that's so. If you like, that's really hard, you know. But
You're not
normally
distracted,
people
you're not
just
distracted.
counter straight up, but that's here is impossible. But you're right. So it's not really touching. So touching and no disturbing.
You shouldn't touch the body of a person who is dying.
But
Yeah.
also, this Lika opposite, you know, not 100% sure, but normally, the before black die is as much as for their own thing. So even though they're saying maybe don't bring their objects.
Yeah, like so
And-
we're saying don't trigger attachment
Correct.
by bringing their things,
Correct.
things that they're attached to into their presence.
And also
Or their
their
cats.
relatives.
Or their relatives, or having your relatives say, "Oh, I'm gonna miss you so much."
Right, cry, you know.
And touching.
Right.
Holding onto the feet, rubbing the legs, all that. I mean, that's an American thing.
Yeah, that's really not benefit, you know.
Right.
Of course, we normally nice rubbing back or the feet and nice, you know, hugging is really good thing, you know. But that moment is
Right.
not helpful. So,
Mhm.
but I don't know, it's difficult. But actually, we do it in Tibet. So, like best, like somebody dying, and they just put a tongue us, and the one whatever monks or lamas, the chanting,
Just continue.
and they also this called instructor. So they're like saying, okay, maybe you're dying, or so you now it's time to remember, you know, Buddha, time to remember Lama. So those things they said they're so 100% stop their relatives, children, whatever.
So they don't even, do they not come in the
Not
room?
come at all.
Yeah.
They can see.
Mhm.
Change the name.
So, yeah, that's you're right.
There's two more in front. I think Trikunkagi Buddhist Center has a question, and then Ginger has a question, and then John has another question.
Hi, Drew.
Whatever
Okay.
you want.
There was a
The-
question that came. Yeah. After?
After we beginning, how is that?
So,
Now it's already two, right?
yeah,
Oh, yeah. Okay. We'll save them.
That's okay.
So
Okay.
that's what I would like to say is just make sure that you save those questions because when we shut down the Zoom, we will lose whatever is in the chat box. So so if somebody could take a
Or maybe
screenshot or
not just
something,
close.
or we can leave it
I
open. We
have,
can just leave it
I
open.
saved the one that's here and then the other ones, they're probably gonna do it verbally because they didn't wrote.
Yeah,
Okay.
verbally is okay. That's fine. This.
Yeah, they were just private, so I got a copy down for later.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.